how does memory fail? What's going on here? I got a little challenge for you. Draw the head of a penny. Find a piece of paper, find a pen, pause the video, draw the head of a penny. No cheating. Don't look at your penny. How'd you do? Who's on the head of the penny? Lincoln, right? Is he wearing his hat? What else is on there? Is there any writing? No, here's a penny. You probably did okay, but a lot of people are really bad at this. Why? Right? Is it simply that you haven't seen enough pennies in your life, and if only you saw more pennies, you would have been able to do this task? All right, imagine you're driving down the road, and you're going to glance out your car window. And this little white square represents your car window in this scenario. All right, and here we go. You're going to glance out your window right now. Turns out that man robbed the store. And you're like, hey, I remember seeing that man. So the police bring you in. They show you a lineup, and they say, hey, who did it? Well, who do you think? The first one, the second one, the third one? Well, actually, it turns out that none of these men were the ones that robbed the store, right? This comes into an issue of what we call encoding failure. This is what we call an encoding failure. This is where information doesn't get encoded into our memory. It's not a failure of the memory system itself, but rather a failure of encoding. Whatever it was didn't reach the threshold to get processed and stored in a way that is retrievable. And this is going to be a really big deal in exactly the situation we talked about. False eyewitness IDs account for an estimated 2,000 wrongful convictions a year. Eyewitness testimony is the only major evidence in over 80,000 cases a year. And in cases where new evidence has emerged to counter eyewitness testimony, right, there have been hundreds of cases where people were released. Elizabeth Loftus is a famous researcher who has spent a lot of time trying to understand how eyewitness testimony can fail. It's not always an encoding failure. We can actually change people's memories. For example, she would show people an accident, and she would ask them questions about it. So here was the accident that they saw, and then she would ask a question like, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? Then another group was asked a slightly different question, almost the same, except they were asked how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other. Right? Smash into each other implies changes, right? And sure enough, the people who were asked the smashed question remembered more damage, more broken glass than the people who were asked the hit question. This is called the misinformation effect. This is where new information that we gain after an event has occurred causes us to change our memory. And this happens because retrieval is an active process. Memories are not merely pulled up, retrieved, and played. Instead, they are constructed. Holes in the memory are filled in through our imagination, right? We use new information to make our memories more accurate, right? We change our memories every single time we recall them. The changed memory is then reconsolidated back into long-term storage in the changed form, which means when we pull it up again, it's now changed, and any new information can change the memory. In fact, no matter how accurate our memories seem, they are full of errors. And those memories that we are most likely to retrieve the most often have the most errors in them. And there's many ways in which this can occur. The misinformation effect we just talked about, where new information causes us to change our memories. Imagination inflation is where we fill in the gaps of our memories through the use of imagination. Source amnesia is where we forget where we learned information. We attribute it to different sources than it really is. Deja vu occurs when we fail to encode incoming information as incoming information and instead encode it as a retrieved memory. And implanted memories are memories that can be completely false, that never occurred. Loftus did this by bringing people in and having them reminisce about childhood memories, and then asking them about a time they were lost in the mall. by talking to parents and friends, they made sure that this event never occurred. But by asking them to imagine and build the details, when asked later about these memories, they were able to recall a vivid experience about being lost in the mall, but it was completely fabricated, completely implanted. Right? Loftus did this with kids, where she had them imagine a balloon ride, where after they imagined it, the kids later actually remembered riding in the balloon. They created a memory centered around that experience. That's a cheap way to take your kids to Disneyland. Just have them pretend for a while until those memories become real. Right? Sometimes by helping someone try to recall a memory, we may actually implant it. And no matter how real a memory may feel, it doesn't make it real. Loftus found that there were certain things that made memories more likely to be implanted. Trusting the person, being in a relaxed state, and not providing too many details. Right? This is where the imagination inflation comes in. The person creates their own details and thus creates their own vivid memories. So our memories are not just potentially full of errors, but they can outright be completely fabricated, completely implanted, never actually occurred. And this despite how real they might feel.